Hey friends, are you familiar with the most trusted business network for business executives? It's the C-Suite network. If you're a business of $5 million or greater, and if you're a VP level or higher, then you're invited to join the C-Suite network to connect with your business peers. Go to csuitenetwork.com, that's a C-suitenetwork.com, to learn more about the benefits, meetings, and services exclusive for C-Suite executives like you. Okay, let's do the show. It's time to accelerate. This is Andy. Welcome to episode 444 of Accelerate, where I hold in-depth conversations with today's leading experts in sales, marketing, and leadership 6 days a week. Hey, we all hit slumps in sales from time to time, but if you're struggling with how to get your sales back on track, then you need to go to accelerate.fm/spark and get my free ebook, How to Spark a Sales Turnaround. You know, in the course of interviewing for the show, I've asked more than 300 sales experts how they would turn the corner on slumping sales, and I've compiled their recommendations into a practical, step-by-step guide that you can use to accelerate your sales today. So don't wait. Go to accelerate.fm/spark, spelled S-P-A-R-K, to get your free copy of How to Spark a Sales Turnaround. Joining me on the show is Sonia Simone. Sonia is the Chief Content Officer at CopyBlogger Media. In this episode, we explore content marketing and how it's changing. How even though it's not really a new topic, it's still on the list of the most important marketing trends in 2017. So we explore how content marketing is changing in response to changes in the market and technology, and we compare the art of marketing to the art of selling. So Sonia, let's talk about you first. How'd you get started, and where are you now?
Yeah, I am the Chief Content Officer for CopyBlogger. The parent company is called Rainmaker Digital. It's really the same company, just a different name. And basically, the CopyBlogger blog, I think a lot of people are fairly familiar with in the content marketing space. And so I kind of helped determine the editorial direction there with my business partner, Brian Clark, who is the one who founded CopyBlogger, and create a fair amount of content myself. I write quite a bit. I have a podcast. I also we have a private community of content marketers, and so I really lead that community. And long ago, I was a writer for a travel company, and one of the salesmen called me the word put togetherer, and it's still kind of my job. I'm one of the lead word put togetherers over at CopyBlogger.
Got it. So there is so much that I find this interesting. There's a lot of talk still about content marketing, and yeah, it's not like it's new, right? But I mean, like I was researching recently about top marketing trends for 2017 and looked at various lists, top 10, top 15, things marketers need to think about for 2015 or 2017, excuse me. And content marketing is right at the top of the list still.
Yeah.
And so it's not new. So yeah. Why is that still such a huge point of focus?
I think it's a huge point of focus. It's just a reality of the web, and it's a reality of markets that are on the internet. Every year, they're presented with kind of more distractions, more bright and shiny objects to look at, more time spent on the social web, and the more that becomes available, the less you can count on something like a traditional ad to interrupt that person's day and get a message to them. And then when you do interrupt that person's day, which you do, right, on a Facebook,
sure.
Facebook advertising, very effective. Google AdWords, still very effective. When you do kind of get into that person's attention stream, you have to do it with something interesting. And you have to do it with something that's worth their time, because otherwise they'll just flit off to something else. There's no way you can hold attention in this marketplace, in this marketplace of distractions and entertainments and diversions, without really putting together material that that people are going to want to spend their time on. So yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's gonna it's going to be around for quite a while.
Yeah, I guess I was really asking the question from the perspective of, so how's it changing? How's it evolving? I mean, one is Interesting. It still seems like, outside of major enterprise, the penetration's still inconsistent and relatively low. If you look at a lot of small and mid-sized enterprises, still without any sort of clue about a consistent content marketing program. I mean, you finding that to be the case as well?
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's a rare small to mid-sized business. They don't feel confident, about their ability to create that interesting content. And so I think they know that they would benefit from this thing called content marketing, whatever that is, but I don't think they have the confidence in their ability to produce the creative work, the original creative work that you need to produce. But I think that slowly the smaller companies, the mid-sized companies are starting to realize that if they will grab that, if they will grab that opportunity, they have a real potential for a competitive advantage because their competitors are not there yet. So I'm seeing smaller organizations get started with it and doing some really, really interesting work. But it's small to mid-sized businesses already have a lot on their plate and thinking about, now I have to come up with some kind of interesting content. It can be intimidating.
Right. But I think it seems to me, and I've certainly talked about this with clients that I have, that it's time to start sort of re-envisioning the way your structure looks, because this, as an organization, because this is not suddenly a nice to have. This is mission critical. And so if you didn't have this role in your organization before, you maybe need to think about, within the budget you have, making some trade-offs and saying, this becomes really that's not a mission critical role that we need to have as a small organization to go forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think the companies are really finding that because you need to differentiate, and frankly, you need to compete with those monster businesses and their monster budgets. So yeah, and it's coming, as we say in Italy, piano piano, slowly. But no, I think the more traditional business is starting to realize that there might be some things that they could do with content, and particularly, as you said, you can move some dollars around from. Certainly, if you're still, there's plenty of still small businesses still buying Yellow Pages ads and things like that. So, if you're still kind of putting some resources into that, then those dollars are getting shifted around. And of course, a lot of the small business community, they are served by search marketers, as they do, a lot of them do have an SEO, and they are talking to that person. And the smart search engine optimization organizations are all about content. And so I think the search professionals are going to help that smaller business kind of get up to speed and really understand that, content is a search strategy as well as, serving all kinds of other roles.
Well, I think that's also one of the issues with a lot of small enterprises is that they tend to think about content marketing as just writing a blog, which it's beyond that.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's business owners have to think like every business owner has to think like a CMO, even if maybe you already have a CMO. Every business owner really, really needs to it's one of their top priorities is cash flow and customer acquisition. Just full stop, right? And so, yeah, I think that I think that they're getting more sophisticated about it, and gradually kind of coming to the realization that, as you said, it's not not a nice to have anymore. Really, you have to be in the game. And a blog, there's nothing wrong with starting with a blog, and some companies that's sufficient. I mean, it just really depends so much on what you do, and how well you do it. But there's all kinds of ways that we can get content out. There's tremendous things people are doing on YouTube, depending on what kind of business you're in. Some businesses are really making podcasting work. In my view, that's a long game. Podcasting there's not a lot of quick wins, but you can definitely make some interesting things happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just look at my own platform since I started podcasting. It's grown, exponentially. But I've been doing it now for 15 months. But yeah, they always say podcasting, wait till the end of year 2 before you make any assessments about whether it's working for you or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, anytime we talk about these kind of strategies, I mean, content is a big word. I'm not actually a fan of that term at all, content marketing.
Really, what would you use instead?
Because to me, well, that's the trick. That's the problem. That word content is so, I mean, in a way, everything on the web is content.
Right.
That's not like banking data. So it's all content, but yeah, I mean, that's the trick is, how to put it otherwise succinctly, and I've seen some interesting things about calling for it. Well, it's not really content marketing, it's audience marketing, because it's really about producing something that really serves the audience instead of serving you. An ad, maybe you could think of an advertisement serves the business, and content serves the customer and the prospect.
Right.
And it's all these distinctions. We can kind of hold them and play around with them, but they all, none of them holds up if you look at it too closely. But it's very vague, and I think that's actually one of the reasons that the smaller businesses that might not have a big agency are a little slow to the game, is just because it seems so vague. It's like, well, what does that even mean, content marketing? I mean, it sounds like a buzzword.
Yeah, well, how would you define it? I mean, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to the show. I mean, if you had to succinctly define it, because it's not just doing a blog. Yeah,
it's not just doing a blog, although you could just do all your content marketing could just consist of your blog, and that could work. For me, the phrase that I have always found that resonates, and I didn't come up with it. I'm trying to remember who did. It might have been a copywriter named Gary Bencivenga, who's a great traditional copywriter. But the idea is to make your advertising too valuable to throw away. So you're creating so it's a blog post that somebody has bookmarked, or even better, maybe they actually printed it out and they kind of stuck it up on the cork board above where they work to kind of look at it and refer to it. Or it's, it's the podcast that they refer to. It's the infographic that they print out and share with the team so they can make decisions. If you think about that, what are you producing that has so much intrinsic value that people don't just kind of glance at it and then maybe they're interested in the product, and if they're not, then they just glance on? What could really hold that person? The reference, and also things that are. It's not enough to be useful, and I see a lot of blogs that are very useful and they have good information, high quality information, but they're very me too. They're very generic. Everybody's doing the same 7 ways to do the thing post. Everyone's doing the same, and there's not much personal voice. There's not much personality.
No, it's clickbait.
Yeah, it's just, it's very same. So that's part of it too. If you want it to be too valuable to throw away, it also has to be really kind of different, kind of interesting, have some personality, have some texture and some, I say art,
Well, I want to talk about that art thing in a couple of minutes, because I thought there was a really interesting post you wrote about that, and applicable across sales, marketing, and multiple fields. But before we get to that, I sort of wandered toward that point, but maybe sort of buttressing what you were just talking about, which I think was a great quote, is to make your advertising, because content marketing, content you create basically as advertising, even though it's not overt necessarily in all cases, but make your advertising too valuable to throw away. I love that. That's a great perspective for people to think about. Even if they're doing something, as we said, just blogging or whatever they're creating, is having a point of view. I think is part of what you're talking about, is not being the Me Too, and not being what I call the clickbait blogs that, 7 ways to do this, 10 ways to do that, and so on. I mean, I thought we had, just when you thought we were getting away from numbered posts, we're coming back to them again.
Oh, we'll never get away from numbered posts. We'll never get away from numbered posts. And because there is something about numbers, it's the weirdest thing. But when you put a number in a headline, you just watch it and you're like, yeah, there it goes, But you can write a boring numbered post that's the same thing everyone else in your industry is writing, and they're just so dull. And if you covered up the header, I wouldn't know who wrote it. I would have no idea that it was your site versus dozens and dozens of your competitors. Or you can put a number in the headline and then really write something different and really write something that speaks with a voice that can't be, just kind of written by some algorithm somewhere. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I see, it's just astonishing to me when you look at your numbers and you say, those dang old numbers, man. People click on those numbers. But make the post worth it. Make it worth the click. And then, and then I say, use it. Use what works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I sort of use that in emails, sales emails I'll send to clients, maybe somebody that I'm sending an article to them. And I say, hey, I thought about you this morning when I was reading this article. Here's the link. There are 2 points in there I think we should discuss. But I don't say what the points are. Yeah. And
right. Yeah.
So then they have to go in because it piques their curiosity to go in. And I sort of do that sometimes if I'm going to use a number in a headline of a blog I'm writing. I won't clearly mark out the points in the post all the time because I want people to read through it and engage with it.
Right.
So came to a point you'd made about art, which I thought was a great post. Which I think is really relevant to sales as well as marketing. We're talking about the art of marketing. We talk about the art of selling. And the thing is, this is sort of controversial these days, the art of selling, because in the same way that marketing has become really all about the metrics, now technology is enabling sales to have sort of the same transparency and touch points and be able to be metrics driven as well. And there's some parts of the sales community that say that, the art of selling is dead. Right. But, you talk about, I like your quote. You said you define art as an expression that can't be made by an algorithm, which really defines an interaction with another human being, which is at the heart of sales.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. 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 I mean, I think the art of sales is as crucial as it ever was. And I think any organization that's smart is going to be able to just see that. Just look at your sales teams, who's performing, who's not performing. I mean, there's an art to it because it is about connection and it's about people. I always say that about search engine optimization, and people go nuts trying to figure out the algorithm, and they're playing to the algorithm. A lot of bad content is bad because it's written trying to make the Google algorithm happy. And I always say, well, when they give algorithms credit cards to buy my stuff, I'll think about it. But I mean,
just you wait. Just you wait.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe so. And when they do, I'll think about it. But I got to connect with a buyer. I got to connect with a person. But I can use, technology to facilitate that, and I can use technology to help light the path. A little bit and say, okay, this message, I mean, it's wonderful for that as a writer to be able to have tools and say, this message expressed in this way resonated. And that one, it's just people can get it, and then you got to figure out why. But that's the problem we have sort of with a lot of the data we find in both marketing and sales is that we see a data point, and I mean, you very carefully said the right thing, which was, you had to really sort of look at it and understand what it's really telling you, why one resonated, why one didn't, where we tend to have a tendency to sort of rush in and say, okay, that's a data point. This one that didn't work as well, we're just never going to do that again because that must have been horrible. As opposed to saying, well, hey, these were the variables that were at play there. We always would rush to see causality where it doesn't really exist, as opposed to, as you said, there's a correlation, but just not sure what it is. No, exactly. And we think that when we look at data, we're being objective and making an objective decision. Oh, that didn't work. And what we don't see is just what you just said, which is we know it didn't work, but we don't know why. And so we imply the causality. The causality. That's what we bring. We say, oh,
our
that one didn't
confirmation
work.
bias at work, right?
Yeah. That one didn't work because it did that thing I hate. It's data is, I love data. I love evidence. I try and be a very evidence-based thinker. But it's not so easy. And we all think, I make my decisions based on the evidence. It's trickier than it looks.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah, I just read a book by a gentleman who I also interviewed for the show, named John H. Johnson, about a book he'd written called Every Data, the misinformation hidden in the little data we consume every day, which was really just...
nice.
Yeah, it's a great book. I recommend it. I think you'd really enjoy it. And but it's about, how we have to be careful about, now that we're all consuming more and more data, that, we do it with our eyes open.
Yeah.
And this whole issue of the confirmation bias, obviously is a big one. If we say, this data fits what I always thought the answer was, which is sort of the essential way we use it. So you also, in that same article, get back to this question about art and the algorithm, which I loved, was also describing really sort of this whole moment of interaction with the prospect. You talk about, it's the creative spark, the unusual choice, the flair of personality, the moment of real human empathy and connection. And when I was reading those, I was saying, well, first of all, I'm going to steal these and use these in my new book with attribution, of course. But
sounds great.
But that's what really defines that moment when, you've used your technology and your MarTech and your sales tech to get you to the point where you actually are in position now to have that human-to-human interaction. I think those things you described, that's really it. That's where the whole art of selling still exists. That's where the science, quite frankly, the science of selling still exists from the standpoint of people like, Kahneman and Cialdini and Tversky and all these, Herbert Simon, all these Nobel Prize winning laureates and prominent authors that have, done the research saying, this is the way the brain works. Those things are really important.
And that's where I think the small to medium-sized business and the entrepreneur-led business, that's where we seize the advantage in content. Because a lot of big organizations have a very, very tough time having the boldness, to speak that kind of voice. But entrepreneurs are nothing if not bold. And and that's where, because I'm really all about empowering small companies or small organizations, or even skunk work, organizations within bigger companies. I'm really about empowering them to do human stuff and, create bold kind of statements, because that's how you compete. Long ago I wrote about, like all metaphors, it only goes so far. But, if you think about the meteor, right, that took out the dinosaurs, the big companies, they have a trouble with courage, most of them. And even the brave ones get less courageous over time, like Apple. And they have a tough time being really quick and responsive. And usually when you see a big company that's really responsive, it's their ad agency talking. The big company's not that responsive. And then they fire that ad agency.
Because they were setting a bar that they couldn't live up to.
They were telling a truth that couldn't be lived. So big companies have a very hard time with this strategy, and sometimes they can do it for a while, but they tend to have a hard time with it. I like to think of the entrepreneurial organization as like those little mammals, that came in after the meteor and kind of took over the niches and were really adaptive and really responsive and were more flexible, were quicker, were smaller, didn't have the calorie requirement, right? Small, lean, fast. And if we think of ourselves in that way, I think that, again, can help us creating that kind of content that has, art. And I think, I mean, I know marketers who roll their eyes and are just like, enough with the art. But I also know marketers who are like, yeah, that's my killer app. That's how I thrive, and the other guy doesn't. So,
well, yeah, marketing, sales, it applies both levels. I mean,
Yep.
one of my soapboxes I'm on fairly frequently is, talk about in my books, is that, the thing that makes selling so interesting, it is a creative pursuit.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we might call it art. I mean, you talk about the artist's life, and one thing being so interesting about it is that you never stop learning.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that should be true throughout your career in general, right? I mean, if you're mastering your craft, as you talk about, then new vistas unveil themselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what makes it worth coming to work every day, and that's what makes it worth doing the things that we do.
But the key point there that I think that a lot of people just they stop the learning part. And we certainly see that in spades in sales, or, too many sales professionals sort of say, look, if they depend on the company to, provide them training and not taking the initiative themselves to think more broadly about what they do and be exposed to other sources that might inspire them to, reach for that next level in their job.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes both ways. I mean, I also see sales organizations that, they're all about the numbers. They're all about, and I mean, if you, some of the pitches that we all get, and every time somebody, kind of has my job and has maybe a fair number of Twitter followers, we get these terrible spammy emails, that try to sell me like a product type. It's like, yeah, my company's like a competitor, so I'm not going to buy your product. And we all share them and groan. But I mean, they're coming out of these sales organizations where junior people are just being told, just do it. It's the email equivalent of smile and dial.
Make 100 contacts today.
Make 100 contacts, and you certainly don't have time to research any of those people, so that you might actually make 10 effective contacts that might actually get you somewhere, and it's that's
sort of some of the data serve isn't always helping, and because you see some companies that are trying to grow quickly or whatever, and they said, okay, well, if we send out, if we make 500 contacts today and we get one particular email campaign with certain subject line, gets a certain response rate, then rather than saying, well, how do we use that to double the response rate on the 500? They send 1,000 emails. Yeah. To double the number.
And they send 1,000 emails to the wrong people.
Yeah. Without the research, as you said.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I also sort of last thing to get into, which I liked, and this is again another sort of, it was interesting reading it because it's sort of a passion point of mine, is that you talk about other ways to develop your craft. Yeah, sales, marketing, both about communication, both about building relationships, some more directly, perhaps indirectly and whatever, but, the end in mind is still the same. And, I encourage people to read sales books, but I encourage them to read lots of other types of books too. And you had some interesting ideas. You said, if you're trying to develop your muscles for communication, so on, is study poetry. I thought that was very interesting. I'm a huge poetry reader myself. Do you have a specific recommendation for people that are saying, okay, that might be interesting. Where do I start?
Well, I think the real place to start is really what kind of captures you. I mean, I think a tremendous number of sales professionals in particular would love to go take an acting class, because those personality types tend to be very aligned,
Absolutely.
And what would you learn
class
about improv? Yeah. What would you learn about how you're using your voice? And if you meet with clients, face to face, how are you using your body? And even if you're not, your physiology really determines your vocal quality and your level of enthusiasm, and it's fun. It's fun. Acting class there's just nothing more fun than acting class. If you feel like you really super effective in terms of your written communication with your clients, take a poetry class and learn how to say something very compressed in one little metaphor or well-chosen word. Or one of the ones I love is screenwriting. Mm-hmm. Because screenwriting is all about storytelling and dialogue, and we all think like screenwriters in a lot of ways because we all watch a lot of television and films. Mm-hmm. But I would really start with, what would you, even if it's actually doesn't seem that relevant, it'll make you more interesting. Even if it's a painting class, you just always really wanted to take a painting class and you love to draw in high school and you haven't done it since. If you love it, or if it's music, if you love it, it's going to make you better at what you do. There will be some kind of interesting little bridge that you never knew was there. So I would say, really start with what turns you on instead of like everybody kind of dutifully going to Toastmasters or dutifully going to
which is still a good idea though. But as long as they follow through with it, yeah.
Toastmasters is a wonderful. I love it. It's such a wonderful resource. But we all do it because we all know we're supposed to do it. Do something that's not what you're supposed to do. Yeah. Do something just because you want to do it.
And improv classes. I had a guest on the show, a woman named Kathy Salet, who had written a book about performance in the workplace, and based upon she's an acting teacher, an improv actor, and had a great thing in there that about, in improv, when somebody hands a line, one actor hands a line to the other one, the one receiving it, sort of the standard response is yes, and then they build on that. And it made you think about in normal sort of conversation, we tend to say yes, but. Yeah. And yes, buts, that's closing things off. Yes, and things opens it up. So you think about all the times back where you're talking to customers or prospects, and they say, do you do this? And we say, yes, we do that. But it's a little bit different, And suddenly, as soon as you say the but, they start closing down.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how studying other disciplines can really help you in ways that perhaps are unanticipated.
Well, I'll give you an example. My speaking coach, who I love, she's brilliant. Her name is Victoria LeBaume. And Victoria's training is as a mime. She studied with Marcel Marceau. So, if you could think of an artistic realm that would not help a speaking coach, I think mime would probably, be high on the list.
Exactly, yeah.
And at the same time, so much of what she teaches is about visual communication and about body language and about rhythm. And, there's so much that's relevant to what she learned as a very serious student of mime that applies to her speaking coaching. And so she's coaching mime techniques to Microsoft executives. It's just wonderful. It's what a wonderful world we live in. Don't be so quick to think that it might not be really applicable to what you're doing 9 to 5.
Got it. Well, good stuff. Well, we've reached the end of the show. So, Sonia, tell folks how they can find out more about you and connect with you. And if they're in Rome, drop in on you.
Come wave hello.
Yeah.
Best place, the best place to find me is swing by the CopyBlogger blog, copyblogger.com. Say hello. I also have a podcast. You can find that at copyblogger.fm. We make these things very complicated for you to find. Those are great. I'm very responsive in the comments there, and I would love to sort of see what you've got in mind or what you're thinking about. I am often very easy to find on Twitter, just at Sonia Simone, very easy. But I will warn you that sometimes my productivity requires me to be stern with myself. So I do have times when I don't hit Twitter, and I might be hard to reach there, but I'm always easy to reach over on CopyBlogger. So.
Okay, great. Well, Sonia, again, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you. It's really been a pleasure.
Great. And friends, thank you as always for taking this time spending it with us today. Remember to make it part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And an easy way to do that is make sure you join all my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Sonia Simone, who shared her expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks again for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.